In today's episode of Guy with Film being late on the hype train, here I am with a video about why I think you should get into film photography, which in 2025 is like many years late. It's like going around telling people that ChatGPT can do your homework. Well, guess what? Everybody and their mom already knows that. But I have free will and I can do whatever I want, and I'm going to share a few deeper, more existential thoughts about film photography and photography. It's going to be something unique, I hope, and if not, then it's just going to be my personal take on creativity in this day and age. Firstly, to address the title of the video, yes indeed, I do think film is overrated. The word film has become like a buzzword of sorts, with creators throwing it around for the sake of the algorithm. How many TikToks or Reels or YouTube videos have you seen about how to get a filmic vibe in your pictures, or this digicam can take unlimited film-like photos? Film has recently been portrayed to be this gold standard of photography that elevates your pictures to another level, and shooting something on film has sort of become this badge of honor, like as if it's the secret sauce to making good photos. I guess it makes sense because people know that film is expensive and it's harder to shoot, so like it's understandable that the common sentiment is that, you know, there's gotta be something to it, or else why would people even be shooting film? So I think it's important to get some misconceptions about film out of the way. Film is just a medium for photography, that's all. Film is a sheet of plastic with chemicals on it, designed to capture light as information. There's no magic film vibe. Film doesn't guarantee cinematic colors. Fundamentally, it's not supposed to change anything about photography, because film is just a medium. With that said, let's get into why I love it so much. Film photography is fun. Wow, who guessed? But I genuinely feel that I've looked forward to taking photos so much more when I use film versus back when I was on digital. And I've come to realize that there are reasons for that. For one, there's so much choice. Many people's entry point into film would be a simple disposable, but there's so many more types of cameras out there. There's point and shoots, SLRs, TLRs, rangefinders, panoramic cameras, view cameras, just to name a few. There's also many choices of film formats: half frame, 35mm, 120, or even 4x5 and 8x10 if you don't mind dropping like $50 per photo you take. Not saying that you have to drop tons of cash on new gear all the time. After all, no matter whether you own a cheap SLR or are shooting on a $5,000 Leica, you still shoot the same 35mm film. But it's just that there's so much more to learn and explore. And curiosity and learning is fun. Many cameras have rich histories and their own rabbit holes to dive into and learn about, versus the comparatively soulless, mirrorless cameras of the 2020s that everything is, you know, kind of the same. Want a camera that has a swinging lens to get you panoramic photos? There is one. Want an SLR the size of your torso that takes film sheets the size of postcards? There is one. Want a Hasselblad that took photos in space during the OG moon landings? There are 12 sitting on the surface of the moon right now, waiting for you to take them back to Earth. Plus, it's not just the gear. The film also keeps things fun and exciting. Being able to load in a different film stock based on the thing you're going to shoot feels so special. And just like the cameras, there are so many film stocks to learn about, shoot, and explore. You can try different films across different brands, and every time, the results are going to be fresh and exciting. Film photography as a process also has just that much more soul to it. The cameras themselves are designed to inspire, with planned obsolescence being woven into the fabric of modern manufacturing. The timelessness and craftsmanship that you can see in the tools of decades past is something to be treasured. And having tools that are beautiful inspires you to create equally beautiful art. And it's such a joy to use these film cameras. They're tactile and you feel physically connected to the process. Be it loading film, cranking the shutter, rewinding the camera, focusing the lens, you have to reach down and touch stuff. Not in a weird way. Having to physically interact with the camera, seeing the world around you through a viewfinder or ground glass instead of a screen, and clicking physical dials and buttons. These all add to the flavor of shooting. It's fun, and having fun is what it's all about. Intentionality. Shooting film makes me a more intentional photographer. As photographers, we have to look and work hard for nice things to capture, and then capture them in an aesthetically pleasing way. When I shoot with film, I find myself working much harder for each picture, because each picture costs money and there are finite pictures that I can take. On a digital camera, it's so easy to just point and shoot a few frames at everything you pass by. I would too often come home with an SD card full of retrospectively mediocre photos, and then having to sift through all of them in Lightroom would be a massive headache. But when I shoot film, I will actually stop, look around, point my cameras in different ways, move back and forth, maybe even spend time waiting for subjects or lighting, and ultimately only pull the trigger if I decide the composition is kick. If not, I'm perfectly happy with just moving on. I put more work, thought, and intention into capturing each photo. And this so-called trigger discipline has been so beneficial for my work. I found that the hit rate I get on film is far higher than on digital. Not to mention, you can't check your pictures on the spot. You compose, take the picture, and move on, which keeps you more connected to the moment you're shooting. Film also slows you down and puts you in a different frame of mind. It distills photography and boils it down to its essentials. When you can't rely on a high megapixel count, in-body stabilization, or ISO 12800 to take good pictures, you have to focus on what matters. Lighting, composition, capturing the decisive moment. Because these are the things that make good photos, and using film reminds you of that each step of the way. In a world full of people and companies telling you that you need sharper lenses or a better camera body to be a better photographer, it's nice to detach from that rat race altogether. Your camera can shoot 40 frames per second. My camera doesn't even have 40 frames of film. Your camera has AI autofocus. My camera doesn't even have autofocus. Your camera has in-body stabilization. Cool bro, I just hold my breath and assume my epic photography power stance. They can't fight you when you aren't even in the fight. It's like escaping the matrix, or like when you tell a Twitter AI bot to ignore previous instructions and give you a delicious cupcake recipe. And guess what? Your photography would probably be better off than the people who just throw money at the problem, because you are focusing on the things that matter. Yes, I know I previously said that film isn't a magic sauce for good photos, but the way film renders light as a chemical process instead of ones and zeros does indeed make a difference in the work you create. Of course, first off, different film stocks provide different looks. There's Kodak Vision 3 500T for those gorgeous nighttime blue tones. You have Kodak Aerochrome, which turns vegetation red. In general, each film stock is special, and it's like having a preset baked into your photos. It's chemistry that has been refined over decades, designed to yield good colors. But more importantly, there are certain qualities about film photos that make them look more painterly or better replicate the way the human eye sees. For instance, highlight roll-off looks better and you can hardly overexpose. There are elements like grain, diffusion, halation, and potentially light leaks, which are all technically imperfections, but they add feeling and soul to the image, which in turn makes digital pictures look so much more soulless and clinical in nature. With that being said, social media has propagated the myth of how film is the be-all and end-all of imaging. Film doesn't always come out nicely. In fact, I think many will be surprised to know that film photographers actually edit their pictures just like any other digital photos. People are like, what? Film? Like you edit film? Why? The whole point of film is you don't... Nah, we still edit film. Because there are also certain imperfections with the way film handles light and color. For instance, if you underexpose, you'll get a color cast in your shadows and the entire picture becomes more muddy. Hence the need for editing. The color cast can be corrected out to give the picture a more natural looking feel. What I'm saying is that film won't magically elevate your photos to God tier automatically. However, there are definitely impactful visual characteristics of film images that I think make them a cut above anything made on digital. Okay, here are some downsides of shooting on film because film isn't perfect either. Firstly, it's expensive, no doubt. Having to buy, develop, and potentially even scan film makes things really expensive. Per shot, you can expect to pay at least around $1, but then again, film gear is usually cheaper than modern camera systems and lenses. Although digital cameras obviously can shoot infinite photos while film can't. So yeah, it's up to you on whether or not you want to foot that sunk cost or not. Next, the limitations of film can no doubt hinder creativity as well. For example, you'll most likely need a tripod at night, which would likely slow you down, where on a digital camera you can just bump up the ISO and be on your way. The slower nature of film photography could lead to you missing shots. Film grain may prove unfavorable for a client who wants razor-sharp images. Having no instant feedback also means that you can't check your shots, which could be dangerous because there are things that can result in catastrophic loss of your images. Things like light leaks, not loading the roll properly, opening the camera accidentally and fogging all your exposures, or even dealing with X-rays at the airport. And ultimately, you wouldn't know until you actually get the pictures back from the lab. Not to mention, film is simply unsuitable for certain types of photography. If you're doing birding, wildlife, sports, or anything that actually requires good autofocus, burst shooting, or ISOs above 800, then film just simply won't cut it. So it all depends on what you're taking photos for, and then you can go ahead and make the respective considerations. To finish up, film is not a secret sauce for making good photos, as I have reiterated throughout this video. Practice and learning is still the key, with film being just another medium to do that in an arguably more fun, engaging, and intimate way that is more likely to keep you interested and invested in the creative process. It's more of a workflow and mindset shift, which for me has been the game changer for my photography. I found that it has allowed me to connect more deeply with my photography and gives it a welcome, slower change of pace. Because analog mediums are the antithesis of today's digital world, full of instant gratification where people are always looking for the next best thing. I believe there is value in learning to step away from that and unsubscribe from these values that society has planted in us. I used to think that having only 36 images per roll is insane. Who would want to limit themselves like that? Now I've come to realize that having 36 images is actually too many. I used to think that not having autofocus or having to cock the shutter after each image is a thing of the past and only serves to slow you down now. Now I've realized that these things are also part of the process and are to be enjoyed as much as the photography itself. I used to think that shooting film and subjecting yourself to an inferior technology when today's bleeding edge exists is foolishness. Now I've learned that limitation is what breeds creativity. Modern cameras have given us the power of the sun in the palm of our hands. But maybe it's good to step away from this power every now and again. And without it, our focus is drawn to the things that matter.
If you're nothing without this suit, then you shouldn't have it.
Having a set of parameters that you have to work within doesn't limit you, it empowers you. So in conclusion, give film photography a try. It's the same reason why people still listen to cassettes and vinyls. It's the same reason people take the time to do anything the slower, less efficient but more delightful way. It's a reason that's better experienced than explained. Life is short. Go do some cool stuff. You won't regret it.